Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to unpack some really critical insights for navigating today's world. And today, we're diving into something truly essential, building genuinely diverse leadership teams. We've got a fantastic source guiding us some really compelling excerpts from Karen Brown's book, The Leaders You Need: How to Create Diverse Leadership Teams for a More Dynamic, Resilient Future.
Yeah, and our focus today is really Brown's ABCD framework. It's a practical problem-solving approach to cultivating stronger, smarter, and more resilient leadership. And what you'll discover, I think, is this isn't about blame or shame. It's much more about uncovering overlooked talent and, building a truly future-ready organization.
Okay, so let's get into it. Prepare for some powerful examples, maybe some surprising facts, and a clear roadmap for creating leadership that truly reflects, well, the full range of humanity. We should probably start with the fundamental question. Why? Why is diverse leadership so urgent right now? Karen Brown dedicates her book to her father, who taught her to value the full range of humanity. And that really encapsulates her core belief when decision makers include individuals from all sorts of varied backgrounds: economic, generational, gender, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, physical ability, religion. Everyone benefits: employees, customers, suppliers.
Investors, the whole community.
Yeah.
And Brown really challenges some common misconceptions right off the bat. She argues pretty forcefully that expanding the talent pool by focusing on diversity doesn't actually take opportunities away from others. Instead, it uncovers equally, or maybe even better, qualified people who might have just been overlooked by, the usual systems. She even points to a London School of Economics study suggesting quotas for gender parity, which are often controversial.
Right.
They can actually weed out unqualified men rather than promoting unqualified women. It sort of flips the script, showing how it can be a win-win, not a zero-sum game.
And the urgency, wow, it couldn't be clearer, could it? I mean, just think about the economic uncertainty, the culture wars, climate change, migration, civil unrest. It's all reshaping our world. And here in the U.S., you see renewed demands for gender, racial, religious, LGBTQ plus equality right at the forefront. Consumers are, voting with their wallets.
And employees with their energy, exactly. They prefer brands that align with their values, brands that actually try to address societal problems.
So it really forces the question, can organizations truly thrive in this kind of environment if their leadership doesn't reflect the very people they serve?
That's the key question. And Brown highlights that, despite some progress, top leadership in the U.S. is still, stubbornly predominantly male and white. Like in 2022, only 6 CEOs in the Fortune 500 were black, and 74 were women. Now, those were record highs, believe it or not, but they still show pretty significant underrepresentation compared to the population as a whole.
So Brown's whole approach is about shifting away from seeing diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, as just a, numbers exercise or maybe good intentions. She really pushes us to think about making heads count, not just counting heads. And this brings us right to her framework, ABCD.
Right, the ABCD framework. It offers a really practical guide for organizations, big, small, for-profit, nonprofit, to get the leaders they truly need. It's built on 4 pillars. A, align diversity, equity, and inclusion with business priorities. B, build strong partnerships with stakeholders. C, cultivate a culture of role models. And D, define objectives and outcomes with data.
What's compelling here, I think, is that it isn't about just prescribing specific programs or policies. It feels deeper. It's more about cultivating a deep-seated culture that genuinely welcomes everyone, embedding DEI into the very fabric of how leaders are found, developed, selected. Brown even mentions her own travels, like almost 80 countries.
Yeah, she says that taught her the power of curiosity, listening, patience, really putting people first.
Which feels like a good mindset for this.
Absolutely. And this current era, it presents this huge opportunity that honestly many organizations are still kind of missing. But consider this.
Yeah.
Women influence or control an estimated $81 trillion of global wealth, and they make the vast majority of consumer purchasing decisions. It becomes incredibly clear the marketplace isn't fully serving them. Brown points to data showing women are, more satisfied with financial advisors who demonstrate gender smarts, who get their unique constraints and goals, and that translates directly to bottom-line growth, tangible growth.
So, okay, how do we connect that to the everyday reality of running a business? Because many leaders believe in equality, but they struggle to link it directly to, making money.
Right. And Brown makes a really powerful assertion here. She says, people drive customer experience. People do the work. People achieve results. And leaders decide who those people are. So assembling the absolute best team means putting all people at the heart of everything.
Yeah, that cuts through it.
It does. And a diverse leadership team, it sends a huge signal, not just internally, but externally too. It helps attract new hires, gain customers, and maintain the organization's license to operate in the community.
Hmm.
You see this commitment reflected in efforts to diversify boards.
Right. Or even in advertising trying to represent more diverse groups.
Ex-
Okay, maybe we should quickly clarify some key terms Brown uses just to make sure we're all on the same page. She defines diversity really broadly. It covers all inherent and acquired traits. So, physical abilities, social identities, gender, race, age, sexual orientation, but also things like expertise, values. It's much bigger than just non-white or non-male.
Right. And building on that, equity is about actively removing obstacles, creating genuine opportunities for everyone to thrive. It's about fair pay, equal access to development, recognition, all that. And then inclusion. That's about maximizing all those human traits, making differences an advantage, creating an atmosphere where everyone can participate fully without, feeling inhibited or punished for being different.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting, I think. Brown offers a sharp critique of a lot of traditional DEI efforts. She suggests just focusing on numbers can actually backfire. It can lead to resentment among majority groups who feel excluded or maybe believe people are appointed just to fill quotas. There was an EY survey, I think back in 2017, found about a third of men felt excluded and they blamed corporate diversity programs.
It's a really crucial point, and there's research by psychologists Tessa Dover, Brenda Major, Cheryl Kaiser that backs this up. They found that white men, actually regardless of their politics, felt threatened by pro-diversity messages. And it impacted their performance in hiring simulations. So the implication is moral appeals alone, they're often not enough for, sustained cooperation. Brown's insight here is that leaders really need to connect DEI to managers' day-to-day jobs. Hold them accountable for concrete objectives, not just some abstract idea of doing the right thing.
That takes us straight into Pillar A then. Aligning DEI with business priorities. It's about understanding deeply how the makeup of your teams directly impacts your ability to actually achieve your goals.
Exactly. And Brown shares this fantastic example from Monsanto, Michael Frank, head of international operations. Initially, he didn't see why he needed more women on his leadership team, his customers, mostly male farmers. But then he got this surprising insight. Many customers actually prefer dealing with women. They saw them as more empathetic, better listeners, and maybe even more importantly, women were often the key influencers behind the male customers' buying decisions. That completely changed his whole approach.
Wow, it's amazing how varied the ways are for diversity to actually drive value. Brown identifies 5 common business priorities where this alignment really shows up. First, creating better customer experiences. Think about the U.S. film industry. A study found the exclusion of Black creators, producers, writers cost Hollywood $10 billion a year. But films with 2 or more Black individuals in those key roles, they had a 10% higher ROI. And just look at the massive success of Barbie, right? Helmed by a female director, over $1 billion in 3 weeks.
Yeah, and the financial services sector is seeing this too. Firms like Fidelity are realizing diversity-focused companies are just better equipped for the next generation of clients. Cartier, they traditionally marketed to men buying for women. They had to pivot when women started buying fine jewelry for themselves. Now their sales teams help women commemorate their own achievements, like promotions. They're recognizing that shifting purchasing power. And it's not just customers. Supplier diversity too. University of Chicago engaged minority and women-owned professional services firms.
Like legal money management.
Right. And it helped build wealth in the local South Side community. It shows how internal diversity can inform those crucial external partnerships.
Okay, second priority, igniting innovation. This makes you ask, whose problems are we actually seeing? Take Star Cunningham, a Black woman, no medical degree. Took her 5 years to get seed capital for her healthware company. She had a solution for millions with chronic illnesses, especially relevant for Black communities. But she felt the mostly white male investors were reluctant because she didn't, quote, look like a healthcare entrepreneur. Wow.
It was Esther Dyson, the tech analyst, who saw beyond the usual metrics, saw the potential, and gave her that crucial mentorship.
That's powerful. Another great example is Gillette in India. Robert McDonald, former P&G CEO, realized their U.S.-designed razors just didn't work well there. Why? Many people lacked consistent running water for rinsing. His own experience living in the Philippines gave him the insight. Shaving in the United States wasn't the same as it would be in India. That led to a totally new razor design that did incredibly well. It shows you don't need the CEO to find these insights, right? Employees at all levels have diverse experiences that can spark real innovation.
Okay, third priority, responding to business change. Makes sense. After big crises, you need fresh thinking, new leadership for long-term success. Maria Bolden at DuPont, a middle manager, she turned around a struggling sales unit, took an almost entirely white American male team and delegated responsibility to diverse global sales leaders. DuPont's market share just skyrocketed from 12% to over 70%.
It demonstrates that whole idea that institutional knowledge can become a crutch or a shield that diverse thought can just break right through.
Yeah. And fourth is building and maintaining a good corporate reputation. Reputation, we know, correlates with financial success. Consumers increasingly want brands they trust. Now, some companies, like Prada, they appoint diverse leaders after a blunder.
Reactive.
Exactly. But the real benefit is being proactive. Monsanto, once called the world's most hated company, saw a big positive shift in reputation by appointing racially and ethnically diverse women to senior roles, like Shilpa Devekar in India, Leticia Gonçalves in Europe. They intentionally use their identity as women, as mothers, to build trust with journalists, influencers.
And finally, number 5, managing risk and making smarter bets. This fact is startling. Women are more likely to die of a heart attack in the ER if treated by a male doctor. But a study found that having more female doctors on the ward actually increased women's survival rates, even if their own doctor was male. It just shows the power of diverse perspectives in really critical situations.
Absolutely. Anne Finucane, former vice chair of Bank of America, put it perfectly. She said, diversity of any kind creates the need for engagement. It prompts more questions, different decision-making. Our blind spots, personal or organizational, that's where risks hide. Think Kodak. They invented the digital camera, but failed to capitalize. Filed for bankruptcy. Why? Leadership discouraged dissent, prioritized legacy products. A classic, devastating blind spot.
Okay, that covers A. Let's move to pillar B, building strong partnerships. You just won't get far without partners, right? And that's definitely true for DEI initiatives.
Totally. Cody Sanchez from Contrarian Thinking shared this story about an ad agency owner. He struggled to hire women. Why? A real bro culture. He was actually afraid of hiring women after a lawsuit. So Sanchez, instead of judging, asked him about his agency's success rate with woman-owned companies. She basically said, how can you sell to a group of humans you don't represent at all? Suddenly, it was a clear business choice for him. Fix the culture or face a dwindling market.
So who you partner with really depends on your role, obviously. But stakeholders are everywhere. CEO, board, middle managers, employees. And their motivations vary, right? Financial, operational, like maybe fierce talent competition or deeply personal beliefs about fairness.
Exactly. Which is why it's so crucial to uncover what truly matters to each one. Mark Mendez, a partner at Davis Polk, showed this. He advocated for junior attorneys to get experience on big deals, even ones he hadn't worked closely with. He understood their need for advancement and acted as their champion.
And external stakeholders have huge influence, too. Prominent investors like Natasha Lamb at Arjuna Capital. She successfully pushed for more diversity on boards in management. Her shareholder resolution led Citi to publish its pay data, and that revealed significant gaps.
Right, but crucially, it showed the gaps were due to underrepresentation of women and minorities in top jobs, not unequal pay for the same job. A key distinction.
So the tricky part, how do you engage stakeholders who push back, who seem resistant?
Brown emphasizes listening, not necessarily to agree, but just to gain information. The Rockwell Collins example is really strong here. Brown was chief diversity officer. They needed to hire 7,000 engineers, male-dominated industry, predominantly white location. Big challenge. She engaged everyone. Internal stakeholders, external ones, community relations, universities, even helped new hires' partners find jobs. That massive collaboration led to real local changes, like a bank changing its ads to feature diverse, younger people, reflecting the new reality.
It's that realization she talks about. Stakeholders are people, not boxes on an organizational chart. That really sticks. She tells a personal story about coaching a CEO who struggled to commit visibly to DEI. Through their trusted relationship, she found his blind spot. Privileged background, never experienced exclusion himself. So she created a safe space for his whole leadership team to share personal stories of exclusion. That allowed him to comfortably admit his limitation, and it led to a much stronger DEI strategy.
It really highlights her 3 steps for building partnerships. 1, identify stakeholders, map their power, influence. 2, gather intelligence, one-on-ones, surveys, focus groups. And 3, build trust by actually giving them what they need. That often means having those tough, honest conversations. Like Richard Taylor at NASDAQ, he realized his DEI messaging was making white men feel excluded. So he adjusted it to ensure everyone can see themselves in this picture.
Okay, shifting gears to Pillar C, Cultivating a culture of role models. And this isn't about punishing individuals for bias, right? It's about changing the underlying systems, the policies, the practices that unintentionally keep things the same and overlook talent.
Exactly. If your organization can't create a truly welcoming environment, you're just going to lose diverse employees. It's that simple. Brown points out if one race or gender dominates leadership, that's a clear sign. Your systems for identifying, selecting, developing leaders are somehow making others feel unwelcome, even if it's unintentional. Think of Kate Sullivan, the broadcast journalist. Talented but felt devalued, judged on appearance, lacked role models, felt lonely, invisible.
So what does a truly welcoming culture look like? Freedom to express views, universal respect, not having to hide parts of yourself, being judged on contribution, not looks or background, every person treated as an insider, and inclusion is everyone's job.
Right. And Brown highlights how even well-meaning actions can be exclusionary. Like, a manager might spare a pregnant employee from a tough assignment without even talking to her about it.
Thinking they're being kind.
Right. Or excluding a diverse team member from a happy hour, assuming they'd be uncomfortable. Seems nice, maybe, but it takes away their agency, their chances to connect and grow.
That example of Brown coaching the general counsel whose religion opposed homosexuality is fascinating. Asking him to sponsor a Pride Month lecture by an LGBTQ plus advocate. That takes guts. But she prepped them both, arranged a dinner for them to connect as people, assured him she wouldn't judge.
It shows the power of curiosity, empathy, and courage in actually fostering inclusive behavior, not just talk.
And values on the wall, integrity, people first, they're just wallpaper, as Brain says.
Unless leaders live them consistently in their behavior and their business practices. Diane Heward-Mills, CEO of Heward-Mills, is a great example, built her data protection firm around a deep commitment to human rights. Fairness and equality are central to hiring, pay, everything.
Brown breaks down 5 key characteristics for inclusive cultures and leaders. What are they again?
Okay, so being curious, being aware, being courageous, being committed, and being collaborative.
Let's unpack those a bit. Curious.
Curiosity means always asking why, digging deeper. Like Michael Frank at Monsanto asking for clarity on inclusion, which led his team to address biases. It's admitting what you don't know. Humility, then awareness. Exploring your own blind spots, your biases. Brown uses that balcony ballroom effect analogy. Watching from afar, quick judgments, truly understanding. You got to get down on the dance floor, shed preconceived ideas, notice whose perspective is missing.
Courage seems crucial. Admitting you're wrong, standing up for someone different, challenging practices, like the CEO who fired someone immediately for a homophobic remark, that sends a message.
A huge message.
Yeah.
And commitment means constant self-reflection, baking DEI into every decision. Like the M&A leader who actively committed to seeking acquisition targets owned by non-white LGBTQ plus SAT or disabled individuals. It's intentional.
And the last one, collaboration.
Yeah. Using your power to bring outsiders in. Building trust. Michael Santamaria at Baker McKenzie, he talks about his family to invite others to share about theirs. It helps them sense their unique challenges, and then he actually does something to clear obstacles. It's that whole person approach.
Brown's message here feels pretty direct. If you aren't appointing more diverse leaders and managers, it isn't because they aren't there. It's because you aren't opening the door to them.
Oof. It's blunt, but it's likely true in many places.
Okay, let's hit Pillar D. Defining objectives and outcomes with data. Brown mentions hearing a Fortune 500 CEO frustrated, saying, basically, we spent all this time and money on DEI and have little to show for it.
That feels common, right? Because the language of DEI is often about principles, feelings, different from the hard data of business decisions. Exactly. And Brown argues if DEI is going to be embraced as a core business function, it has to operate like one. Use data, use rigorous analysis, show its contribution. Milton Davenport, the endodontist, he used data to switch hourly staff to salary. What happened? Improve productivity, better equity, remove the incentive to just stretch out hours. It shows how data can drive changes that benefit people and the business.
But often organizations only track, aggregate diversity data. They miss the full picture LGBTQ plus identity, disability, or where people actually are in the hierarchy.
Right. You need deeper analysis. Segmenting employee data with business and financial data reveals so much. Citi again found their pay gap wasn't unequal pay for the same job, but underrepresentation in top spots.
Yeah.
Data showed them where the real problem was.
So the goal should be making DEI data relevant to every decision involving people.
That's the ideal, yeah. Brown identifies 5 types of business data organizations already have that could be used for DEI analysis. Ready?
Lay 'em on me.
Okay. First, employee data. Zillow Group found all male interview teams hired fewer women. Add just one woman to a technical interview team. Female hires jumped from 14% to 40%. Huge difference.
Wow.
Second, customer data. Doppler Labs made wireless earbuds. K.R. Liu, who had hearing loss, screened inquiries. Found 25% of potential customers wanted them for hearing issues. That insight pivoted the company towards the over-the-counter hearing aid market, now estimated at over $1 billion.
Just from listening to customer data.
Exactly. Third, financial data. Baker McKenzie assumed women partners were less productive due to childcare. Pure assumption. Brown segmented revenue per hour data by gender. Showed women contributed equally. That data strengthened the case for a more inclusive firm, led to operational changes.
Busting myths with data.
Totally. Fourth, operations data. PepsiCo's Paula Santilli noticed manufacturing lines in Mexico staffed only by women were more productive, made fewer errors. Their male colleagues actually started wanting women on their lines too. Another manager tailored car theft training for women with kids in South Africa, recognizing their specific risks, using operational insight.
Okay, number 5.
External data. A Fortune 500 bank, all-white leadership team, wasn't really focused on diversity. Then new market data showed huge demand for business services from non-white executives. That data led them to create new market segments, appoint Black and Hispanic leaders. The market data drove the change.
But Brown says having data is just the start, right? You need the right metrics to show your efforts are actually leading to more diverse leaders and making the organization better, like at Baxter Healthcare. Leaders wanted to keep high-potential women who were leaving. Data showed far fewer women got promoted to director or VP. No women in P&L roles at all. Then focus groups revealed why. Lack of role models, lack of exposure to senior leaders.
So what do? Armed with that data, Baxter set clear goals for female representation. They created opportunities for women to interact with senior leaders, coached managers on recognizing transferable skills within a year. They increased women VPs by 2%. They used data to pinpoint the problem, overlook talent, increase visibility, and track progress. All reported to the board. That's accountability.
The source also talks quite a bit about breaking down barriers to advancement, how leaders often just assume current practices work, even if they keep picking from the same small pool. It creates this invisibility for talented people outside the majority group.
Yeah, and leaders often rely on networks of people like them. Makes it really hard to find diverse talent unless you're deliberate. That university research team example is great. Applying for a big grant, $2 million. Grant guidelines encourage partnering with underserved populations. The team realized, our existing network won't cut it. They had to proactively go out and find a new partner with those specific connections. Be intentional.
And those persistent myths are real barriers, too. Like that IBM study saying execs think fewer women want leadership roles or they prioritize family.
Those myths.
Education helps, sure, but Brown suggests just asking who is missing from the rooms where we make decisions. That's a powerful starting point.
It is. And you can uncover so much just by listening. Baker McKenzie, again, employee survey, showed both women and men wanted more flexibility. Focus groups then revealed women felt excluded from those informal after-work social things crucial for networking. An exec realized his own habits were contributing. He shifted his informal get-togethers to the office. Immediate impact. A female team member shared her career goals for the first time. She hadn't felt comfortable before.
So that naturally leads to rethinking the whole leadership pipeline, internal and external. Like NASDAQ's LIFT program, Leaders Investing for Tomorrow. It targets a bigger, more diverse talent pool lower down, makes sure representation is equitable across departments, fosters networking, building the bench.
Exactly. Or Leticia Gonçalves at Monsanto. Inherited an all-male team. She actively recruited externally and hired women into deeper internal roles to build that critical mass of diverse future leaders. The former HR VP at Baxter pushed back on a search firm twice when they didn't present Black candidates for a CIO role. That persistence led to hiring a really beloved Black executive who made huge contributions. You got to push sometimes.
It really does all circle back to making all people leaders responsible, doesn't it? Their impact on who gets developed, promoted, seen. It's huge. It means setting clear DEI objectives for managers, giving them the tools, the support.
And then holding them accountable, just like any other business goal.
Right.
Julie Eaton, former DuPont exec, shared that for years only business results mattered in evaluations. It wasn't until the company defined specific behaviors like acting like an owner that she felt she had permission to manage and develop her team more holistically. That created an environment where diverse folks could thrive. It empowers managers to base decisions on defined capabilities, not just unconscious fit bias.
Okay, now let's turn inward. This is the most personal part, I think. How you, the listener, can become a more inclusive people leader. Starts with some deep thinking about our own worldviews, our biases.
Yeah, Brown makes this really astute point. We often unconsciously project our own experiences onto others. It's just human nature. Like, if you're used to being heard, you might not even notice colleagues who struggle to speak up. If you talk openly about your family, you might not realize LGBTQ plus colleagues feel they have to hide theirs. If you're a native English speaker, you might not grasp how mentally exhausting it is for non-native speakers constantly translating in their heads.
So the path involves constantly working on those 5 C's again, right?
Yeah.
Being curious, aware, courageous, committed, collaborative. I remember that Coca-Cola video, strangers judging each other, then the lights come on, surprise.
Exactly. That's our daily challenge, isn't it? Noticing our snap judgments based on appearance, accent, background,
Mm.
and questioning them.
And it takes real courage to admit what you don't know or when you mess up, especially at work.
For sure. Brown shares how Bruce Boyd, even with his diverse life experiences, still needs good guides and mentors to point out when he's not being as inclusive as he wants to be. It means being truly open to feedback, even when it stings a bit.
So what's a practical step someone listening right now could take?
Brown actually challenges you. Write down your own stereotypes. Think about where they came from. Actively work on challenging them. She also highlights commitment. Milton Davenport, the endodontist again. He openly supports his Spanish-speaking staff talking in Spanish. He's even learning some himself. He's not coddling patients who might demand English only. He's setting a standard.
And being collaborative, using your power to bring outsiders in. It can be one-on-one, right?
Right.
Just showing genuine interest in people's lives beyond the work tasks.
Exactly. Like Michael Santamaria at Baker McKenzie, talking about his family to build trust, understand his team's unique situations. It also means speaking up for people not in the room, involving people in decisions that affect them, noticing when voices aren't heard, actively seeking out diverse advice.
That example of John Danley, the aerospace exec, is really powerful. Male presenting employee discloses they want to transition. Danley, unfamiliar territory for him, but his immediate response: communicate support, equity to the employee and the team.
Proactive.
Collaborative.
Yeah, it modeled inclusion for everyone.
Yeah.
Led to a beautiful thing, as he put it, as the individual transitioned openly.
And that builds incredible trust. Stephen Covey talks about trust starting with personal credibility, integrity, clear motives, competence. Maria Bolden at DuPont says, if leaders make it clear their main mission is building the strongest, most successful team possible, people will trust them. They'll execute. And that opens doors for everyone.
Brown leaves us with a pretty challenging thought here. If your inner circle, your go-to advisors, your team's insiders, if they all look and think just like you, you're limiting your own information, your perspectives.
And you're sending a message of exclusion, even if you don't mean to. People will feel like outsiders, lonely, anxious, like failures, and you just won't get the huge benefits that greater diversity brings. So as we wrap up this deep dive, it's really clear, isn't it? DEI isn't just a program you finish. It's an ongoing living process because the world keeps changing, people keep changing.
Absolutely. And Brown's statement really sticks with me. Diversity is a fact. Inclusion is an act. She reminds us, in-groups and out-groups, they exist everywhere. Caste discrimination in Seattle, laws against homosexuality in many places. Our gut instinct might sometimes be to distrust difference. It takes continuous, conscious effort to understand each other, build a more welcoming world.
So what does this all mean for you listening? For you as a leader? It sounds like adopting a really deep people-first philosophy in everything you do, spending more time actually connecting with your team, asking questions like Marcus Buckingham suggests. What are your priorities this week and how can I help?
Or even just what would you like to talk about today? Simple, but powerful.
Manage for people, not just the numbers on a spreadsheet.
Exactly. Start with the stories, employees, customers, partners, before you jump into the financials. Remember, it's people who do the work. People create the customer experience. People achieve the mission.
Okay, so this deep dive, we really unpacked Karen Brown's ABCD framework, aligning DEI with your core business priorities, meeting those evolving customer and talent needs.
Building strong partnerships with stakeholders, understanding their motivations, engaging them personally.
Cultivating that culture of role models, shifting systems, welcoming and empowering everyone.
And defining objectives and outcomes, with data revealing blind spots, measuring progress, making smarter strategic decisions.
How you choose to move forward with this, well, that depends on what's important to your organization, right? And your own personal commitment.
Ultimately, the power to create that more inclusive, dynamic, resilient future.
Yeah.
It really does lie within each of us.